What's up, Otakuact family? Welcome back to another solo leveling breakdown. Okay, so we open with Chief Wu Jinchul storming into President Go's office with this urgent report. China has submitted a request for information on Jin Woo, specifically raid records and any published data about our shadow monarch. President Go is just as confused as we are, right? Like, why would China be after Jin Woo when he's already made it crystal clear he has no interest in joining foreign organizations or leaving Korea? But then, and this is where it gets insane, Jinchul reveals that the request didn't come from the Chinese government. It came from an individual. The moment he revealed the name, President Go froze. Liu Zhigang, China's 7-star hunter, had personally asked for Jin Woo's information. That hit President Go hard. Jinchul adds that it likely had something to do with Liu's past battle against a giant monster. After hearing about Jin Woo's solo annihilation of the giants in Japan, Liu Zhigang had grown curious about the Korean hunter's capabilities. And you know what? President Go's reaction was perfect. That knowing smile spreading across his face before he orders Jinchul to reject the request or provide only surface-level data. Nothing substantial about Jin Woo was to be shared. Meanwhile, at the Scavenger Guild, the atmosphere was heavy as preparations for the conference ramped up. Laura enters Thomas Andre's office with an update. Jin Woo was scheduled to arrive in the country the next day. The door creaks open, and the person Thomas summoned arrives. Without any build-up, Thomas steps forward with his firm expression and delivers his warning. No matter what happened, Sung Jin Woo was not to be touched. Watching Wang Dongsu's face tighten with that mix of nervousness and barely contained frustration was so intense. Thomas saw it and continued, making it clear he knew everything that had gone down between Jin Woo and Dongsu's brother. He understood Dongsu's thirst for closure, but that was all in the past. When Dongsu opened his mouth to protest, Thomas lifted a finger, and the weight of his presence silenced Dongsu instantly. Fear flickered in the S-rank hunter's eyes as he stood frozen under the guild master's pressure. From across the room, Laura watched it all unfold, and you could feel that tension through the screen. Very few people in the world could deliver such a command to someone like Dongsu, but Thomas Andre is not most people. Placing that heavy hand on Dongsu's shoulder, Thomas repeated himself. No contact with Jin Woo, no matter the circumstance. To remove Dongsu from the equation during the conference, Thomas suggested a vacation at the guild resort, far from the action. After that long pause, Dongsu finally gave a stiff nod, jaw clenched, before turning and leaving the office. But even after his departure, Laura could feel it. Dongsu hadn't truly let go of his grudge. When Laura questioned whether it was wise to let him walk out so easily, Thomas's response was bone-chilling. Dongsu wasn't one to back down, which is why Laura was to keep a close eye on him until Jin Woo left the country. Otherwise, he warned, Dongsu wouldn't live to see another day. Finally, the day arrived. The top hunters from the world's most powerful guilds landed in the United States for the International Guild Conference. The air buzzed with excitement, and the energy in the crowd was electric. Among the arrivals stood Leonard Neerman, Germany's top hunter and guildmaster of the Richter Guild. Reporters swarmed like bees, cameras flashing non-stop. When Leonard asked his vice-guildmaster what all the noise was about, the explanation was simple. The Korean hunter everyone had been talking about had just landed. Leonard's eyes scanned the crowd until they fell on Jin Woo across the lot. He nodded slightly, deciding he should take the opportunity to introduce himself and build rapport. Straightening his coat and adjusting his steps with confidence, he moved forward, but then, without warning, stopped cold. His vice-guildmaster looked puzzled, asking if he was going to keep walking. Leonard, still staring, muttered under his breath, and as realization struck, he had assumed Jin Woo summoned his shadow army from another dimension. But this was different. They were walking with him always. Leonard didn't see a hunter arriving for a conference. He saw a king arriving for war. Jin Woo, aware of the eyes locked on him, looked over subtly. When Jinho noticed the glance and asked if someone caught his eye, Jin Woo simply replied that some foreigner had been staring for a while. Jinho chuckled and joked that maybe the guy was a fan hoping for an autograph. And honestly, mood. Jinho. Before the conversation could continue, Adam White approached with a team from the U.S. Hunter Bureau. He welcomed the group with professional ease, handling the pleasantries quickly before directing staff to escort Jinho and Wu Jinchul to their rooms. But when he asked Jin Woo to stay back for a separate matter, our Shadow Monarch's expression immediately hardened. He wanted to know if this was about his father again. Adam reassured him that it wasn't about threats or danger. In fact, quite the opposite. The Bureau held him in the highest regard. Still unconvinced, Jin Woo pressed further, but Adam kept things vague, mentioning only that it was a top-secret matter they would discuss at the Bureau headquarters. During the drive, the tension in Adam's voice rose as he explained the ongoing internal problem. Christopher Reed's death, still hidden from the public, had left a gaping hole in the Bureau's strength. Resources were now being funneled toward finding someone capable of replacing him. And when Jin Woo asked whether he was one of the potential candidates, Adam gave a silent nod that said everything. Without dragging things further, Adam activated the center console and a hologram came to life. Kamish's corpse appeared, towering and lifeless, alongside a glowing runestone pulsing with power. Adam explained the runestone's origin and its unmatched potential. It had come from one of humanity's greatest calamities and had remained sealed until now, waiting for someone worthy. And in their eyes, Jin Woo was that someone. But Jin Woo didn't answer immediately. Instead, his focus shifted as he asked Adam to rewind the image, stopping at the hologram of Kamish's corpse. Jin Woo stared at it longer than Adam expected before asking if the body was truly stored intact. When Adam hesitated before confirming that it had been preserved, Jin Woo, now firm in his tone, requested to see it. Caught off guard, Adam tried to explain that even he didn't know its exact location, that it was highly classified. But Jin Woo reminded him of all the time and cooperation he'd given the Bureau so far. This was hardly too much to ask. Adam, uncertain but aware of the weight behind Jin Woo's request, agreed and contacted the higher-ups for clearance to access Kamish's corpse. Soon, their car pulled into the Hunter Command Center, and word of Jin Woo's arrival quickly reached Director David Brennan. Surprised by the unplanned visit, David immediately questioned whether Jin Woo had said anything about the runestone, clearly expecting that to be the main agenda. But Adam explained that the topic had barely come up all day, which only deepened David's confusion. Why was Jin Woo so insistent on seeing Kamish's corpse? Perplexed, David stepped away to consult with the deputy director. As the two discussed behind closed doors, the deputy speculated on Jin Woo's intentions. While most hunters would have been drawn to the immense power runestones offered, especially one extracted from a creature like Kamish, perhaps for Jin Woo, the corpse itself held greater value. David's brow furrowed as he recalled how Jin Woo's powers worked, how they were tied to the monsters he personally defeated. That was when it finally hit the deputy. His eyes widened in shock. Jin Woo wasn't there to marvel at Kamish. He was there to turn the mighty dragon into his summon. The realization struck hard, and David rose abruptly from his chair, stunned by the possibility. The idea of someone controlling a beast like Kamish was terrifying in itself. But before he could voice his opposition, the deputy reminded him of the political weight behind this interaction. Denying Jin Woo could shatter their delicate diplomatic ties, especially when their country already stood vulnerable after Christopher Reed's death. After a long silence, David finally relented. He decided to take responsibility himself and accompanied Jin Woo to Kamish's chamber, reasoning that witnessing the act firsthand would be the best way to assess the risk. Together with Adam, he led Jin Woo into the elevator, descending into the heavily restricted sublevels beneath the command center. As they stepped out onto the underground floor, David gestured silently down the long corridor, where a massive armored door waited at the far end. The moment they neared it, a chill clung to the air. Jin Woo felt it seep through his skin. The magical energy was dense, oppressive, almost sentient. His thoughts raced as he imagined the possibilities if Kamish were to become one of his shadow soldiers. When the door finally opened, Jin Woo was met with the sight he had come for. In the heart of a cavernous chamber lit by cold white lights, Kamish's body rested undisturbed, towering and intact. Its presence alone was enough to command silence. The dragon's scales shimmered faintly even in death, as if its power had refused to fade. David, trying to regain composure, explained how the corpse had been preserved exactly as it was after the raid that took the lives of hundreds of elite hunters. His words barely registered to Jin Woo, who had already started moving forward, eyes locked onto the giant carcass. Without waiting for further clearance, Jin Woo calmly instructed David and the staff to stand back. When the deputy protested, unsure whether it was safe, David assured him that they had already given Jin Woo clearance, and now they would see for themselves what he intended. Standing in front of Kamish, Jin Woo raised his hand, the air around him beginning to distort. His voice, steady and quiet, carried a single word: arise. Dark energy erupted, flowing like liquid smoke toward the dragon's body. The chamber's lights flickered, but then came a sudden halt. A prompt flashed before Jin Woo, informing him that the shadow extraction had failed. But Jin Woo didn't flinch. He had 2 more attempts. Reining in his power, he focused, ignoring the gasps from behind as the ground trembled again. The command left his lips once more. Arise. This time, the shadow responded. A deafening roar shook the chamber as Kamish's body twitched, then surged upward, the immense power coursing through its veins once again as it rose from death. Lights exploded overhead while the structure groaned under the pressure of the awakening beast. Kamish stood, its shadow form towering over them all. The dragon's eyes scanned its surroundings before locking onto Jin Woo. Then, as if remembering something buried deep within, Kamish spoke, not with anger, but recognition. It addressed Jin Woo not as a stranger, but as the Shadow Monarch, the king of the dead. Panic broke out among the staff. Adam froze, disbelief etched across his face. David could barely breathe as he watched the scene unfold, while others staggered backward, unable to comprehend what was happening. Kamish's eyes drifted toward the humans standing behind Jin Woo. Its voice dropped into a growl, and in the next moment the chamber darkened under the weight of its murderous intent. A low snarl rippled from its throat as it vowed death upon every human in sight. The room shook violently, cracks splitting across the reinforced walls, barriers infused with top-ranker mana, now splintering like glass under the weight of Kamish's fury. From a distance, David watched in terror as Kamish's mouth began to glow, the ominous light signaling the build-up of its most devastating attack, dragon breath. He braced himself as the chamber's integrity began to crumble, knowing full well they wouldn't survive what was coming. But before Kamish could unleash its wrath, Jin Woo's voice cut through the roar with absolute command. His tone was cold, authoritative, beyond negotiation. He reminded Kamish that the mana crystal embedded in its skull, the very source of its obedience to the rulers, was gone. The dragon froze. The glow faded. Its fury flickered, then dissolved. Adam could barely process what he was seeing. He asked, half to himself, whether Jin Woo had truly just spoken in the tongue of monsters. The deputy standing beside him was equally stunned by the sight before them. Kamish, once humanity's worst nightmare, now stood solemn before Jin Woo. The anger had faded from its eyes, replaced by something deeper, recognition. It spoke again, slower this time, with the calm acceptance of one who understood its new place. Once it had served the King of Dragons, now it knelt before Jin Woo, acknowledging him as its new sovereign. Jin Woo slowly approached the towering dragon and rested his hand gently on Kamish, his voice low as he asked whether Kamish had truly served the King of Dragons. The dragon confirmed it had, revealing that it once followed the king of mad dragons, known as the Monarch of Destruction. As Jin Woo absorbed the weight of those words, his eyes lingered on the immense rage still radiating from Kamish. It stunned him to realize that even as a summon, Kamish retained such a strong, independent will. He stood in silence, mind drifting back to the vision the system had once shown him. The 9 monarchs. There was the King of the Dead, the Shadow Monarch, and the King of the Giants, the Monarch of the Beginning. And now another piece of the puzzle fit into place. Kamish had once served yet another monarch, one whose power was rooted in destruction. But the moment of revelation didn't last. Kamish, its voice tinged with finality, told Jin Woo that their time together was short. Trapped in the abyss for too long, its magic was fading fast. As the dragon's form began to crumble, dust falling from its body like ash in the wind, it explained that 8 long years had drained it of all strength. Jin Woo's eyes widened in disbelief. Even with the powers of the Shadow Monarch, was he truly powerless against time? A desperate plea echoed within him as he called out to the system for help. But the system remained silent. Kamish's voice grew fainter, speaking its final thoughts with quiet resignation. It envied the shadow soldiers who could remain by Jin Woo's side forever. Then, with what little strength it had left, it offered a warning about 4 humans who had borrowed the power of the rulers and urged Jin Woo to be wary of them. Jin Woo remained still, watching helplessly as Kamish's massive frame slowly vanished, the mighty dragon reduced to particles of light fading into the void. A notification soon appeared before him, stating that the shadow extraction had failed. Without a word, Jin Woo turned back and called out to Adam, telling him to inform Director David of his apologies and that he would personally cover any damages caused. The frustration gnawed at him as he walked away from the ruined chamber. His clenched fist trembled with anger, and with a sudden burst of emotion, he struck the wall beside him. The force of the blow shook the building for a brief moment, leaving David and Adam frozen where they stood, stunned into silence. And that's where we end episode 2. What did you think of this episode? Drop your reactions in the comments below. Don't forget to smash that like button if you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe for more solo leveling content, and hit that notification bell. Until next time, keep leveling up, and I'll see you in the next one.